leading up to tonight's program over the last week. Access and persistence. Help us wrap our heads around what that even means, because we might hear that a lot more tonight.
Sure. Well, access refers to sort of the end of the high school pipeline, when you're trying to figure out what are the resources and opportunities that would allow young people to go on to higher education. What access is not talking about is the preparation and the readiness to leverage access so that you can actually go on to post-secondary education and be successful there. So if you have access without preparation and without readiness, you are creating a system or a situation in which access leads to, perhaps, if you're lucky, matriculation, but not completion. And that's what we've seen for the last 40 years.
Persistence, what do we mean when we say persistence? Because that's a real
Sure.
issue as well.
So the industry is growing up, and it used to be called retention. So that's how higher ed looked at it. It was always college's jobs to retain students. So college talked about retaining a student. But now we look at it, what is the young person's role and what is the community's role in helping that young person persist? So they move from a very passive role where colleges retain them to a very empowered role of persisting. The other thing about persistence, which is very important in tonight's context, is to understand that it can be a measurement, and it can be a very weak measurement. So persistence can mean 180 days after high school graduation. Are you still in college? So you might hear people saying, or we might hear our government saying, that young people are persisting. If they're only persisting 180 days or even one semester or 2 semesters, then they may be reaching a weak measurement, but they're not persisting to completion. And that's what we want to look for, persistence that moves toward completion. And completion in 4 years and the latest 6 years, because if you persist beyond 6 years, the data shows that you are going to have microscopic improvements in graduation rates.
As we were watching the piece there, I could tell your interest was piqued when they talked about college may not be for everyone.
Yes, and I think that's true. College is not for everyone, but the opportunity to go to college must be afforded to everyone, and disproportionately, students from low-income backgrounds attending urban schools do not have the opportunity to go to college or to even consider it an option, and the quality of their education often, the circumstances that they grow up in, the neighborhoods, the poverty, the hunger, all of the social and emotional barriers make it impossible for those children, or it takes Herculean efforts for those young people to have the opportunity to go to college. So when I hear things like college isn't for everyone, we have to be really careful to make sure that underneath that statement isn't a bias that college is for people of wealth or people of privilege, but not for maybe people who weren't afforded the opportunities of being born into a family that could afford a lot of privilege.
How are we doing in St. Louis when it comes to post-secondary education?
Well, we're making some big strides in some areas, and we're actually, I believe, on the decline in terms of our matriculation rates and graduation rates for African American and non-traditional students. So
on the decline?
I believe we are, and you have other fabulous people who can speak to that more specifically tonight.
It's